I still remember the day my husband, Richard, told me he was hiring a driver. At first, I thought it was a bit over the top. We weren't the kind of family that lived in a mansion with a fleet of cars waiting in the driveway. We lived comfortably, yes, but Richard wasn't some billionaire executive. He was a senior partner at a financial consulting firm in Dallas, and his job demanded a lot of long hours, late nights, and traveling across the city for meetings. He said having a driver would help him focus, save time, and reduce the stress of traffic. I had my doubts, but when he introduced me to the man who would be working for us, I softened. His name was David Miller. He was in his mid-30s, tall, with sandy blonde hair, kind hazel eyes, and a demeanor that immediately put you at ease. He wasn't flashy or arrogant like I had pictured someone in that job might be. Instead, he was polite, attentive, and respectful. I shook his hand that first day and thought, well, maybe this won't be so bad. At the time, I had no idea that this man's presence in our lives would unravel everything I thought I knew about loyalty, marriage, and myself. Richard's schedule only seemed to get busier once David came into the picture. At first, David was only driving him to and from the office. But soon, he was running errands, picking up dry cleaning, and even taking Richard to out-of-town meetings. Slowly but surely, Richard began leaning on him for everything. And with that, I began seeing David around the house more often. One afternoon, I was working in the garden when David pulled up with Richard's car. Richard wasn't with him. I looked up, surprised, as David approached me. He explained that Richard had gone straight to the airport for an unexpected trip and asked him to drop the car off at home before heading out for the evening. He offered to help me carry some soil bags to the backyard. I hesitated but agreed, grateful for the help. As we worked side by side, I realized how easy he was to talk to. He listened intently, laughed at my jokes, and spoke about simple things: his love for baseball, his younger sister's kids, his fondness for reading old novels. It felt refreshing. Richard hadn't had time for those small, simple conversations in months. Weeks turned into months, and David's presence became more frequent. Sometimes, he'd arrive early to wait for Richard and end up chatting with me in the kitchen. Other times, he'd linger after dropping him off, helping me carry groceries inside or fixing little things around the house. He never overstepped, never crossed a line, but there was something unspoken in the air between us. At first, I ignored it. I told myself I was imagining things. I was a married woman and David was an employee of my husband. But ignoring it became harder when Richard's absences stretched longer and longer. Business dinners, late-night meetings, overnight stays in other cities, they all piled up until I often found myself alone in a quiet house, with only David's fleeting presence to break the silence. One night, Richard was away on another business trip. A storm rolled into Dallas, one of those heavy Texas thunderstorms that shook the windows and made the lights flicker. I was sitting on the couch, hugging a blanket, when the power suddenly went out. Within minutes, there was a knock on the door. It was David. He explained he had been nearby when the storm hit and wanted to check on me. Something about his timing felt almost surreal. There we were, lit only by candles, with rain pounding outside and thunder rolling through the sky. He helped me find flashlights, checked the breaker, and reassured me that everything would be fine. When he finally sat across from me at the candlelit kitchen table, the atmosphere was charged in a way I can't fully describe. I kept telling myself not to let my thoughts wander, but the more we talked, the more I felt something inside me stir. Not because of what David said or did. He was respectful, careful, but because of how neglected I had been feeling in my marriage. Richard hadn't asked me about my day in weeks. He hadn't noticed when I changed my hairstyle or when I started wearing the necklace he'd given me years ago. He was always too busy, too distracted, too elsewhere. David, without even trying, had become the opposite. He noticed things. He cared enough to ask. He saw me. That night, when the lights finally came back on, David stood to leave. I walked him to the door, my heart racing. For a brief second, our eyes met, and I felt something pass between us. Something dangerous. Something undeniable. He cleared his throat, said goodnight, and left into the storm. I closed the door behind him. Leaning against it, my chest tight with emotions I couldn't name. In the days that followed, I tried to bury what I had felt. I told myself it was just a moment of weakness, just the storm playing tricks on me. But deep down, I knew that wasn't the whole truth. Things with Richard only grew worse. His work consumed him. He came home late, ate dinner in silence, and went straight to bed. On weekends, he was either on his phone or preparing for another trip. I tried to reach him, tried to remind him of the man I had married, but he seemed like a stranger. David, on the other hand, remained constant. He was there when Richard wasn't. He was kind when Richard was distant. He was present when Richard was absent. One Saturday, when Richard was away at yet another out-of-town conference, I asked David for help moving some furniture in the living room. He agreed without hesitation. We worked side by side, lifting and rearranging, laughing at how clumsy we both were. At one point, I lost my balance and nearly tripped over a rug, but David caught me. His hands steadied me, and for a moment, neither of us moved. Our eyes locked again, and the air was thick with everything we weren't saying. I pulled away, mumbling a thank you, but my heart was pounding. That evening, as he prepared to leave, he finally broke the silence. "Mrs. Harris," he said softly, "I don't want to overstep, but are you happy?" The question hit me like a wave. No one had asked me that in years. Not Richard, not my friends, not even myself. I didn't answer right away. Instead, tears welled in my eyes. I quickly wiped them away and forced a smile. "I'm fine," I whispered. But we both knew I wasn't. The truth is, I didn't expect any of this. I didn't expect to feel so invisible in my own marriage. I didn't expect a stranger, my husband's driver of all people, to notice me, to listen, to make me feel alive again. I didn't expect to stand at a crossroads where loyalty and longing collided so painfully. That night, I sat in bed long after David left, staring at the ceiling. The storm inside me was louder than any thunder I had ever heard. The story didn't end there. It couldn't, because once you've felt seen after years of being invisible, it's impossible to unfeel it. Once someone opens your eyes to the fact that you deserve more than silence and neglect, you can't close them again. I didn't know what choices I would make in the days ahead. I didn't know if I would confront Richard, or if I would give in to the dangerous pull I felt toward David. All I knew was that my life was no longer the simple, predictable path it had once been. It had changed because of something I never expected, because of Richard's driver. And as much as I wish I could say I had all the answers, the truth is, I was just at the beginning of a story I never thought I'd live.